It is really a privilege to be representing Royal Bank, and I'm not soliciting any sort of business here, but I'm incredibly proud of the work that RBC has done on the diversity front and the inclusiveness front, a journey that's been in excess of 20 years, and I've been able to be involved in that from the lead. So my objective today is I really just wanted to spend a little bit of time with you, share some insight on what that journey's looked like. I'll try not to talk too much so that if there is any questions at the end, and I can certainly leave my business card, and if there's anything that triggers with you or any resources that you hear me mention that you might be interested in, please don't hesitate to reach out following the conference, and I'm happy to share it. I did see in the pre-work that a number of the RBC resources have been utilized to set the session up. So I'll just review a couple of things that I think are really important. By our definition, inclusion is the state of being valued, respected, and supported. It's about focusing on the needs of every individual and ensuring the right conditions are in place for each person to achieve his or her full potential. It should be reflected in the organization's culture, practices, and relationships that are in place if you're going to be able to support a diverse workforce. So in simple terms, the way I like to think of it and the way we talk in our organization is diversity is the mix, and inclusion is getting the mix to work well and work within your corporate values. Inclusion at its best really does leverage perspectives, life experiences, cultures, and the ways of looking at the world to actually be able to generate results. I want to talk to you about diversity, but more broadly, inclusiveness, and I want to be able to showcase some of the successes because we started on this journey, like I said, about 20 years ago, early 90s, and it started with some closing the gender gap work. And if you can appreciate, in the early 90s, I had just started with the bank in, where was I? In Regina. I'm a Saskatchewan Gala Rider fan. Habs fan too, by the way. Probably shouldn't admit that. But I can remember being new to the bank and hearing the conversations that were going on in the lunchroom as we were having these closing the gender gap conversations that were making people very uncomfortable, like women and equality and representation. And then what ended up happening is we shifted to mid-1990s and put some focus around what we call the Diversity Business Council. And it was actually a 13-member committee, national, representing all of the different regions and representing diversity that was challenged by the CEO at the time, John Cleghorn, to develop our organizational strategy to leverage diversity to gain a business advantage. So me being relatively new to the bank and the most junior, I was representing the field on this national council. It ended up being a multi-year work project that actually laid the foundation for what we call our diversity blueprint that we build all of our principles and values on now. So I think what's important to know is our corporate values are the guideposts that we use to run our business and are a key way for us to communicate the expectations on how we treat each other and also how we're expected to treat all of our clients. Among our core values are service, teamwork, integrity, responsibility, and also stands our pillar of diversity. And it's shaped around diversity for growth and innovation. So it's not only about doing the right thing, you know, and making sure that we're being ethically and morally and corporately responsible. But it's also actually knowing that diversity and inclusion represents an incredible business and economic potential to each and every business. We actually found that the business case for diversity opened the minds of people that otherwise we maybe wouldn't have been able to get the cause to resonate with as quickly. And we created sponsors and champions by opening up the dialogue around the business case. So people want to do the right thing, there's no doubt about it, but the business case can actually create a stronger catalyst to action happening. So I talked about the Diversity Business Council, 20 plus years of work. We've been exploring the dynamics since that time of workforce, marketplace, and community diversity. You can kind of think of them as three overlapping wheels to really get a sense of how you need to integrate and think about it as a process. And it's really been designed to provide a clear focus for our employees, our clients, and make things better for everyone involved with RBC. And I can remember, at the exception of the Diversity Business Council, we really had one key measure of success, and that was going to be that we would entrench the diversity imperative in our core values, and not as a one-off initiative that required committees and special meetings and special measures that were outside of our normal business measures. So it speaks to that whole compliance versus commitment perspective that I'm passionate about, because we know that commitment is far more engaging and it is far more sustainable than compliance. What I also want to position with you, and it's when I walked in the poll I saw, and maybe one of the most important takeaways that I hope you have from today is diversity and inclusiveness is not an HR thing. Anchoring the accountability for integrating diversity and building an inclusive workforce is a business imperative that needs to be, sorry, am I cutting in and out? Okay.
The mic's a bit buggy. Sorry, Tasha.
That's okay. Okay, that really does need to be leader-led, not HR-driven, if you're going to integrate and sustain. Our early work was anchored in HR, but the heavy lifting and the foundation building was put in the hands of the business to develop. And it is where it remains actually today. So as I speak to you, do I actually need it? I talk pretty loud. Can everyone hear me? No? Okay. I'll just keep cutting in and out. So as I speak to you today about our ERGs and our mentorship programs and our educational sessions and our speaking engagements, and Jan representing RBC here, we are people in the business that are touching our clients, impacting our employees on a day-to-day basis. So it's important, and it is where I believe we're creating a real differentiator in the progress that we're making on the inclusiveness front. Our diversity blueprint sets out how we see diversity, and it outlines our priorities, our objectives, and our commitments. It provides the means for having company-wide policies alongside business unit and regional priorities. Our previous CEO, Gord Nixon, headed up the TRIAC, which is Toronto Regional Immigrant Employment Council, and we're very involved in that within Calgary as well. And what we continue to hear externally is we demonstrate our leadership on the diversity front by acting as ambassadors, telling our story, getting involved, leading by example. Dave Mackay is our newly appointed president and CEO, and at our annual meeting, the words he used is, we have demonstrated repeatedly over the years that everything we do and achieve is through our employees, who champion our vision and who live our values. We're proud of our culture of diversity and inclusion, a culture that not only helps us attract, retain, and develop the best employees, but one that mirrors the values of our clients and our communities. He then went on to say that diversity and inclusion is about every single one of us. We recognize the value and power of drawing on the full spectrum of ideas and abilities of all our people. Pause. Does that work better? Now I don't need this. Can I give you that then? Okay, perfect. Hook me up here. Okay, ready to go. Can everyone hear me now? Yeah. Okay, so what I would say to you is that engagement is not only evident among our executives, but it's at every level of our organization. We believe that strong mentorship to help our employees continue to grow and develop is critically important, and also believe in active involvement both inside and outside the organization towards the advancement of our inclusion efforts. I'm currently a mentor in our National Diversity Dialogues Mentorship Program, and a regional champion for a mentorship boost program that we put in place to really propel us in the advancement of women. So there's a number of different grassroots efforts and many national efforts that are laddering up to help us continue to move our thinking forward on the inclusiveness front. What I hope you're hearing and what I'm sharing with you is that our actions have been very deliberate and focused. Creating an inclusive workplace doesn't just happen by chance, and it's not without committed, authentic, engaged leadership that is speaking out about how important it is to the business. Our strength actually comes from our diversity. It's a combination of what we have in common like the values that I talked to you about and our vision in the organization, but it's also about what's different, the life experiences, the perspectives that come to the table, physical ability, gender, all of those different elements of diversity. We're proud that we've been recognized as a diversity leader in Canada, and we know that we have a lot more work to do on that front. I want to give you a few examples of very tangible things that we've been doing to try and move us forward. Our executive strategy is directed specifically at the appointment of female leaders. We have set ambitious targets of having 50% of our executives as women. Today we have almost 50,000 women as RBC employees. 37% of our executives in Canada are women, and 47% are managers and professionals. So we've made progress, but we still have work to do. And I can actually share some personal experience having transitioned over to commercial financial services after 20 plus years in wealth management as a financial planner in that business, and as well on the retail side. We have a lot of work to do in commercial banking still. We have about 30% representation of women in commercial banking and about 21% senior leaders. That's why the drive specifically to do things like this Mentorship Boost program to try and close some of those gaps very deliberately. We have a number of women that have been appointed into significant leadership roles in our organization. Our Chief HR Officer, Zabine Herji, appointed in our CFO, Janice Fukakusa, who was recently named one of the top CFOs in Canada, and Jennifer Torrey, who was just named in as our new group head for Canadian and Personal Banking, Canada and Caribbean. In addition, something I think we should be really proud of is our board of directors is nearly 1/3 women, which to me is not quite where we need it to be. But Katie Taylor was appointed as our chair of the RBC board, and she's the first woman to lead a board of a major Canadian bank. And let me tell you, when you do something like that, the message it sends throughout the organization to the women and other individuals that are aspiring to more senior leadership roles is incredibly powerful. From a local perspective, I'd say it starts with our commitment to career coaching and focusing on talent planning. We have a senior staffing process in place for all of our middle and senior management roles. And a key component of that process is to ensure we have appropriate due diligence on diverse candidates. So women in leadership, people with disabilities, Aboriginals, visible minorities, very, very focused. And on our slate of candidates, we're challenged to identify individuals that bring different skills, abilities, and experiences. And where we're light, we actually have deliberate discussions about how to continue to build our succession pools, including not only identifying early promise individuals that may be a way off in their career to attaining those sorts of roles, but identifying them and starting to put very tangible action plans and development plans in place to help them get some of the experience that would enable them to be successful. What I find interesting about that process is our long list of candidates actually gets more discussion than the successful candidate. We spend a lot of time talking about talent pool and how to broaden it out. So I think the key message here is that diversity is now woven in the fabric of all that we do at RBC. It's really part of who we are. So we've got the right mix. We're enabling women to be able to take more senior leadership roles. We've put accountabilities in place. And we actually devote a considerable amount of time and effort to educating and measuring what gets done. I want to share with you one area that's really helped us is we've created internal networks and forums and ERGs, employee resource groups. And in fact, we currently have 5 very active employee resource groups within Alberta and territories that appeal to a wide array of employees. And they're really designed to create an open forum for discussion, broaden networking, support individuals that have shared interests, passions, and experiences. We have Pride, which is our LBGT. We have NextGen, which is employees in their 20s and 30s. We have REACH, which is our people with disabilities. We have Royal Eagles, which is our One Heart Aboriginal community. And we have Mosaic, which is really representative of visible minorities and newcomers. Now, I want to share with you that I believe our success with these ERGs is that they're business-led. They're not HR initiatives. They have executive champions. And there are lots of friends, meaning you don't have to be identified as a member of that community to become an advocate and a friend. to one of these ERGs. They get lots of profile. We have very transparent discussions. We are talking online. We have different events, seminars, and they're linked to national initiatives. So at all levels of the organization, we have engagement from frontline to executive participation. We're putting diversity to work, and we're getting out in the open some of the real tough to tackle issues so we can get better together. And it's all about part of a journey, because engaged and enabled employees that believe they can bring their full selves to work are far more productive, far more happy, far more engaged, and they will stay a lot longer. And boy, that is sure good for our clients. And I guess at the end of the day, for our shareholders who we're accountable to. Our chief HR officer, Zubin Herji, recently said, having diversity is interesting, doing something with it is powerful. So while leadership and talent strategies are critical, you need to have the right corporate culture to create that sort of effect that Zubin talks about. It's got to be a culture that enables people of all backgrounds to succeed, because you can't keep a focus on diversity and you won't be able to retain it if it's not part of the culture. And it's a culture that gives people a voice and is really authentic, meaning for me, personally, it's okay to be a woman, and I don't have to act like a man to be successful. I can sit at a boardroom table with the best of them and have the conversations and bring what I have to bring to the table, because I know that that's what my employer values in my contribution. One theme that we are examining very deeply within RBC that I think has opened a whole new train of thinking, and I'm happy to share it, is some research work on unconscious bias. And I think we talked a little bit about bias here as well. And it's about how it creates barriers to advancement. So we did some research with Ernst & Young and Dr. Banaji from Harvard University. And we know that everyone has biases, and that's okay. Having them doesn't make you a bad person, but being mindful and conscious of those biases can really help take thinking to the next level. So I'll give you a few examples. Building teams that look just like you. So when you go to the staffing committee, hiring people that think and work like you. They're a hard worker, they put work first, do whatever. Unconscious bias, right? Making assumptions that women with young children won't accept a promotion that may involve some travel. Let's not put her on the slate because she had a baby a year ago. She's not going to want to be away, right? Making our own judgment calls about what the correct work-family balance is for employees that are working with us. I have a mindset that work-family balance is personal. It changes as your life changes, and you need to decision your life-family balance with the important people in your lives, and those are the people that are at home with you, right? And I also believe that work-family balance is about consequence management. You need to understand that if I do this, this may happen, and be okay with that. But that's taken me 20 years to get to, and I still struggle with it a little bit, having a very active family. So on this unconscious bias work, we really found that by raising our own awareness and recognizing these biases, we can take action to mitigate the impact. And we've actually caught ourselves saying to each other, hey, you know what, I think you need to maybe reframe that. You might be bringing some bias into your thinking here, which is interesting because we wouldn't have probably done that 2 years ago without bringing it to the forefront as a topic of conversation. And I think what it's allowing us to do is move past the bias towards getting the right talent in the job, period. I count myself lucky to have had many mentors and sponsors in my career, and I need to qualify that they've been both men and women who have helped me through some of my self-imposed barriers that we all have. So as I reflect and in wrapping up, because I want to be mindful, I think RBC has really, there's 5 fundamentals to us sustaining the action that we've taken around inclusiveness, and it's been our senior leadership commitment, visible, engaged inside and outside the organization. It's been our employee involvement, councils, committees, ERGs, putting tools in people's hands, offering educational seminars as just part of what we do for our employees to help them get better. collaborative partnering with clients, with experts, with governments, with not-for-profits, having leaders come out and speak at forums like this so we can share what we're doing and learn what others are doing. Jan's going to bring back some great insight for our organization that we'll be able to bring into the fold of what we're doing. Accountability anchored in the business, and a core value that we live in and breathe by in our organization. And then communication, internally, publicly, transparent, open, honest. We are not perfect. There's a lot more work to do, but we're happy to talk about it. On a final note, I want to leave you with just a little perspective I've had not only on my diversity journey, but in looking back, I know I'd offer my younger self some pretty specific feedback. First is, and I say this to my kids, you have to dream big and you need to take risks. We have to stretch ourselves to get there. So regardless of age, gender, ethnicity, or any diversity dimension, to do it, you need to dream it. And I'd suggest that applies to the desire to move an organization down an inclusiveness path. Second, and probably closest for me, is to feel confident and comfortable in who you are, because what makes you different is actually what makes you valuable, and helping your employees understand that as well. And finally, understanding that the meaningful change doesn't happen on its own. I look around this room and I wish I would have been able to participate today, because I see a group of clearly accomplished people who are leading the way towards inclusiveness. And that's a powerful idea, that the journey of change starts with us in this room. As we leave here today, I think it's important to remember the responsibility we have to take the inspiration and advice that you've heard throughout the day and pass it along. We are all role models, and we have the potential to create a real powerful multiplier effect by reaching out, inspiring others, and thinking mindfully about how you can be more inclusive in your thinking and your participation in the workplace and outside of work. And as Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So thank you very much for allowing me to be part of today, and have a great day.